Hello, amazing humans. Welcome to today's video. Today, I want to talk all about boundaries. I made a short about no being a complete sentence, and I've been having some conversations about people setting boundaries and not knowing how to say no and people pleasing and all the things. So, this one's going to be a little bit big, like more of a deep dive. And again, I'm not a therapist or a counselor or any of those types of things. So, these are just information that you can find out on the web. I actually, when I was in massage therapy school, I used to be a licensed massage therapist. This was something out of the ethics of touch. So, becoming a massage therapist, I had to learn boundaries for obvious reasons. And so, I'm using some of the notes from almost 20 years ago. And then, of course, things I learned within the last 20 years. And again, this probably will not be an exhaustive conversation, but if you have comments or would like to have me make a video about something more specific, then please put that in the comments. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that like button and subscribe, the little bell, and so that you make sure you're connecting with me and when my new videos come out. So let's just dive right into boundaries. And then I'm also going to share with you, for those of you who maybe find it overwhelming or uncomfortable or not sure how to set boundaries, I'm going to give you a really simple technique as you build up to being more comfortable to setting those boundaries with the people in your life and around you. And boundaries aren't just for other people, they're for yourself too. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. So there are five major types of personal boundaries. And I'm going to add some to that, but again, I'm going off of something that I, read a long time ago. So you have your physical, emotional, intellectual, sexual, and energetic boundaries. That's part of your personal boundaries. So let's go over your physical boundary, which is probably pretty obvious. It is the space that is comfortable to keep between you and someone else. So the majority of people prefer to keep a space of, let's say, arm's length in front of them and behind them. So like if you're, give you an example, you're in the grocery store and you're standing in line to check out and check to see, are you someone who stands arm's length from someone, or do you feel like you need to stand a little bit further away? And do you check how much space is behind you? So that's give or take, it's like 2 to 3 feet, but everyone is different. So this distance can expand or shrink depending on your level of comfort and safety. So some examples would be like if you like someone, your personal boundary may not be that 2 to 3 feet. Like you could stand really close to them, right? If it's someone that you don't like, you may actually extend that difference, or I'm sorry, that distance. If you're angry or upset, even with someone that you love, you may create a personal distance that's bigger than what you normally would. If you're happy or sad, so are you seeing the connection here, depending on how you're feeling, how quickly these can change your personal boundaries? So keep that in mind. And then we're going to talk about, and sorry, I made a bunch of notes, make sure I covered everything. Now let's talk about emotional boundaries. This is defined by your emotions and how you feel in the moment. And again, these also can change very quickly. So your emotional boundaries have to do with kind of it's, I think it really boils down to trust. Like if you trust someone, you're going to express your feelings more easily. So people you love, you probably trust them more. So your emotional boundary, you're going to open up and express things, right? Um, Things that make you afraid, you're probably not going to be more emotionally open. So sadness or loss or joy. To reveal your feelings means you have some level of trust. The emotional boundary may change with each situation, again, and you choose whether or not to express your feelings and how you express them based on your emotional boundaries. Then you have your intellectual boundary, your thoughts, your beliefs, your opinions. So if your beliefs are accepted and encouraged or validated, or even if they're like respectfully challenged, you feel respected and validated. If your ideas or beliefs are ridiculed, criticized, ignored, dismissed, or punished, your sense of self may become shaken. And therefore, you may become hesitant to speak openly about your ideas or beliefs. And I mentioned at the beginning that if you're a people pleaser or you're not comfortable setting boundaries or it feels really uncomfortable in asking for what you want or need, it's probably because at some point someone dismissed your feelings or your beliefs or your thoughts or your ideas. I'm just going to touch on the next one very shortly. It's sexual. It's a combination of your physical and emotional boundaries. And this is determined by whom, when, where, and how you wish to express your sexuality. Energetic, and this is really what I'm going to focus on today, is the energetic. There is a constant flow of energy around every single human being. If you are on my channel, you know I talk about your chakras. I've talked about energy and energy balls and all the things. So you can see why this one is something that I really focus on. They're all intertwined, and our boundaries change daily, moment by moment sometimes. But anyway, so and each person has an energy pattern, and I can influence your energy pattern, and you can influence my energy pattern. So we're energetic beings who need to maintain our energetic boundaries just as we maintain the other four boundaries. So you can learn to protect your own energy from the influence of others and how not to allow your energy to inappropriately cross into someone else's energy. And that's really what this video is about, is me showing you how to do that until you learn how to set your own boundaries. And this is something that I can probably make videos on it if you have comments or need more information. Most of this I cover when I am coaching someone one-on-one because it's a very personal thing. You can have general questions and I will try my best to answer them here. But again, boundaries they're very personal. So anyway, now I want to talk to you about like boundary, excuse me, sorry, about boundary models. And this is based off of Salvador, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, I apologize, Minuchin. And then there's also the Gestalt theory, which is it's like boundary crossing and whether or not something is, it's the boundaries that exist within relationships. Sorry, that was a whole mouthful. So you have boundary models are either, if you haven't watched my video on like your aura, where I talk about that in my like introduction to chakraology, I think it was probably my very first videos. Maybe I'll try to tag that one here so that you can go see what I'm talking about. But you have an energy field around you, right? And permeable allows info into this bubble that you've created. I'm calling it a bubble. So, and that's where the feelings flow easily in and out without barriers. If it's semi-permeable, it's also referred to as flexible, meaning this boundary indicates a flexible relationship with the outside world. And then when you have a more semi-permeable or flexible one, it's allowing closeness if appropriate and keeping someone at a distance when necessary. That's the characteristics of I'm going to call it a flexible or semi-permeable. And then you have rigid. A rigid boundary severely limits the flow of information and feelings moving in or out. This person is well protected. So when you think of someone who has walls, think of a rigid boundary. This person is protected from external harm or stimuli, but they may feel, or you may feel, very isolated. And you probably have very good reasons for having a rigid boundary. And again, this is not a counselor or a therapist. I can walk you through things to do that, but I don't diagnose and do all those things here. But you can move out of a rigid boundary if it's something that you want to do. Usually, if you are a prejudiced person, meaning you are judgmental, this makes for a rigid boundary. Okay. Now, Gestalt has interactive boundaries, and they're described as existing in your relationships. So, meeting at this boundary, I'm going to use my hands as an example. So, this is me and this is you, and we meet and our boundaries touch, right? So, that is you're being close. And then, and usually that's the permeable, right? And then there is boundary crossing or violation, which is where your boundary overlaps with the other person. So we have stepped into each other's boundaries. And sometimes this is okay, and sometimes it's not. And then there is distance, like huge distance between me and you are separated by considerable space, indicating that there's no meaningful contact. So, what I want you to do now is grab a piece of paper, or hit pause, and come back because I'm going to share with you. And I do with my glasses, need my spectacles. So, this is a boundary indicator exercise. So, I'm going to ask you some questions and then you're going to grade it. And again, this is something I did a long time ago. So, I'm just going to go ahead and read it directly as it's written here. As you consider these various models, you may be assessing where your characteristic boundary lies along this continuum and how your boundaries function in interaction with others. This exercise, adapted from the work of Charles Whitfield, MD, helps you understand how your boundaries function. Circle the answer which most accurately represents how you react in these situations. Answer as honestly as you can. Do not choose the answer you think is correct, as there is no right answer. And there are 10 questions. And so I want you to write 1 through 10 on your piece of paper. And then these are your options. You're going to write usually as the first, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. So again, that's usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. So question number 1. Is it difficult for you to say no to people you are close to? Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. I'm going to insert here to go with your first intuitive thought. Like, don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about this. I just want you to answer the question. Number 2, I feel my happiness depends on other people. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. Question number 3, I tend to take on or feel what others are feeling. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. Question 4, I'm going to get a little faster now. So again, less time to think about it. So no more pausing the video. Well, you do what you want. But again, first intuitive hit. Number 4, I would rather attend to others than to myself. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. Number 5, it's hard for me to make decisions. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. Number 6, I trust others easily. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. 7, I feel anxious, scared, or afraid. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. Number 8, I put more into relationships than I get out of them. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. Number 9, I spend my time and energy helping others so much that I neglect my own needs and wants. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. Number 10, I tend to take on the moods of people close to me. Usually, often, occasionally, seldom, or never. I do want to add here, because I do talk about your chakras. If you do this questionnaire and you're following along with me and you really want to evolve and grow and learn how to set boundaries, I really recommend you start working within your own chakras so that you can start shifting these things now. So there are things that you can do now without having to verbally set boundaries that will help you set boundaries when you're ready. Okay, so back to the spectacles. So add up your responses in each of these categories to determine where your tendencies lie. So I want you to put how many usually or often are the areas of the boundaries. So you're gonna have one that says usually or often. How many of those statements where you circled usually or often are the areas of your boundaries, which are the permeable side? Okay. And then where your response was seldom or never indicates aspects of your personality that tend toward the rigid side. Statements where you circled occasionally indicate a semi-permeable boundary. If you answered most or all questions with never, you may not be aware of your boundaries. Underline or circle the key words or phrases to which you answered never, usually, and often. These are indicators of potential boundary issues. Now, again, this is something that I did way back in massage therapy school. It's just an exercise. Don't stress yourself about it. Again, if you have questions or comments, I will not do coaching on here. You are able to work with me. Actually, I'll go ahead and insert that here. If you are wanting something extra, I just opened up. I have 9 spots available for one-on-one coaching, and you can find that on my website. The link will be in the description. Okay, so now we did that. So the various models described are just useful for learning about boundaries. They are just guides, okay? So again, in reality, our boundaries are in constant flux. So they can change quickly depending on what situation that you're in. Not one boundary is more important than another. Each human needs all of them according to the situation. So again, it's that whole mind, body, spirit connection, right? So let's talk about boundaries are innate, developed, and learned. So by innate, this means that there seems to be a genetic quality to the types of boundaries that humans develop at a very young age. So, and then development is influenced by your experiences with your environment, meaning your family, your teachers, neighbors, culture, and the world as a whole. And again, please go do your own research. The stuff that I'm sharing on my channel, if you need a good book to read or you need more resources, please reach out. These are just things, again, I'm just sharing the information so that if there's a spark or something resonates, that you can follow that trail or that breadcrumb to gain more knowledge and what you need for your own journey. I'm just the guide, okay? So, and then you have your boundary crossing. It's a transgression that may or may not be experienced as harmful. So let's give you an example of what a boundary crossing or violation might be. Let's say that someone walks up to you that you know and is a loved one and puts their arm around you, but you're not really in the best mood. So it's kind of like I'm not saying the best example, but they've come into your space really without you like saying that they could. It's because they're used to doing it. And then let's say it's a complete stranger and they come up and they touch you. That's crossing or violating your personal boundary. So, how do you set boundaries? Again, sorry, I need to drink water. I can give you a list, which I'm going to, but it really requires self awareness. You need to be clear about what your expectations are for yourself and for others. What are you or are you not comfortable with in specific situations? Be able to communicate with clarity and assertiveness. Being assertive involves expressing your feelings openly and respectfully. It does not include making any demands, but it does require that the other person listen to you. Setting boundaries is a form of self care and requires you to assert your needs and your priorities to others. Now, if you are, I'm going to use this label, a people pleaser, or someone who doesn't feel like they're heard or doesn't know how to express their feelings or ask for what they want or ask for what they need, this is what we're here for today, okay? And you may be someone who is fantastic at setting boundaries. So maybe this is just a technique that you can use when you're not thinking about, oh, I need to set a boundary. So When you set the boundary, be as clear, honest, and straightforward as possible in a calm voice. Do not raise your voice. When you raise your voice, it automatically puts someone else on the defensive. If someone raises their voice to you, how do you feel automatically? For me, I know I feel defensive. Make sure, or number two, is state your need or request directly in terms of what you want instead of saying what you don't like or don't want, which falls right in line with auto-shitism, the law of assumption, law of attraction, manifesting the things, right? Accept that it feels uncomfortable and do it anyway. I, to this day, even though I feel like I've really grown a lot and evolved a lot, there are some people that sometimes it's just hard to set that boundary with. I still practice. And sometimes, again, you change and you shift, and some things no longer become acceptable, or you need something else. And so you set a new boundary. You don't just set it once and you're done. It's kind of like with auto-shitism. It's not a one and done. These are things that are, when you're aware of what you need, it is all about self-care, taking care of your energetic self, your mind, body, spirit, all the things. Okay. So I also want to talk about some other boundaries. And they're not necessarily, they fall under like personal, obviously, but let's talk about time. Your time is a boundary that you can set. How much time are you willing to give to somebody? And how much time do you have to give to somebody? I'm going to give you an example. I called my mom and she didn't answer, and she called me back. And when she answered, she was like, "Well, is it an emergency?" I'm like, "No," but I could hear that she was working. And I'm like, "She doesn't have time to talk to me right now. So she shouldn't have called me back." Just like if I don't have time to talk to someone, there's something about, I don't know if it's ingrained in us or whatever, but we feel like we have to answer the phone when it rings. Let me tell you, you do not have to do that. So if you don't have time to talk to someone, then don't answer the phone. Or if you answer the phone, set the boundary. I only have 10 minutes. And then at 10 minutes, say, "Okay, I'm sorry, but I have to go." You don't even have to say, "I'm sorry." Just, "Okay, my 10 minutes is up. I need to get back to doing what I was doing, or I have to let you go," whatever. Again, you don't have to explain. The other thing is that it's like conversational. What kind of conversations? Like you could set a boundary on what kind of conversations are you going to have. You can say, "I don't want to discuss this topic with you." You will find a lot of times that, like, we've made it a rule at like Thanksgiving dinner or family gatherings, unless we know how everyone feels, we don't discuss politics, we don't discuss religion. There are certain topics that we don't discuss. And I'll give you an example. My husband had, I'm not going to say exactly what he had, but he had something, and then family members were like feeding that story. And I was like, "Oh my God." So it triggered me. And so the next family gathering, when I called and invited or texted him, I said, "Don't mention this topic." I set a boundary. Quit feeding his bullshit story. So that was, again, I hope that made sense, but you have to set boundaries for yourself. You can set them for your loved ones if they're not able to. Again, it would be more powerful if he set that boundary, but he was the one telling the story. And so until he changed that story, he was allowing people to feed it for him. That might be a whole other topic. And then the other one that I wanted to talk about is a material boundary. So, how many of you are used to giving someone else money or lending them money or giving them material things? You can set a boundary that, I gave you this week, and there's just nothing today. There's nothing this week, or you can stop altogether. And one other thing about setting boundaries is that a lot of people get uncomfortable doing it because they're not going to like me, or they're going to be mad, or they're going to be this, or they're going to be that. There's all these things that setting boundaries brings up for you. Okay. I'm not going to lie. Setting boundaries, when I first started doing it, oh my God, it was so uncomfortable. Like it was cringeworthy. Like I would get sick to my stomach. And like, I can't do this. But as I was stepping in and became more self-aware of what I needed and what I wanted, and that's gaining clarity. Okay. Once you gain clarity of what you need or want in your life, especially when you start using auto-shitism or start practicing auto-shitism, getting what you want and asking for it, you have to ask for what you want or you can't receive it. I mean, it's just that simple. And setting boundaries applies to that. So I hope that was helpful and beneficial. Now, this is for anybody, whether you're great at setting boundaries or not. This is a very simple trick that I teach my clients. Well, not even say trick, it's a technique. And I want to share a story really quick because you just can't make this shit up. So, yesterday I was thinking about boundaries, and then all of a sudden, and when I talk about setting boundaries, I was going to share with you guys this technique of placing yourself in a bubble. Okay. So I'm having this thought yesterday, and then less than 24 hours later, my husband was watching, I think it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And at the end of the movie, it brought up other movies at the bottom of the screen. And lo and behold, there was The Wizard of Oz. And the reason I share that is because last night I was thinking, oh, a bubble. And I had this visual of Glenda the Good Witch when she comes into Munchkin Land in this beautiful pink, beautiful bubble. And so then, of course, The Wizard of Oz pops up tonight. And so I actually hit play and watched Glenda arrive in her magical pink bubble. So I want to share that with you guys. So when you're in alignment and you're getting what you want and you love in life, you can have a thought and it shows up less than 24 hours later, just the evidence of it or the thing. So I just wanted to share that fun little story. All right, so let's get this video wrapped up. I'm not sure how long I've been going, but how do you make a bubble? So you can think it, you can visualize it, or you can just set the intention that you are placing your physical body in a bubble. And again, if the Wizard of Oz and Glenda's bubble helps you, please use that. If not, just intend that you're placing a bubble around you. And then I want you to fill your bubble with white light. I always put white light in my bubble because white light is a universe. It's like the universal color. Okay. And then I want you to, I'll make a video about this, what the different colors, like color therapy and, that sort of thing, what colors and what they represent. So if you've done the videos on your chakras, you're going to know what some of those colors mean, especially if you've taken the Chakraology course. So what I want you to do after you put the white light in your bubble is fill it with blue for calm, green for healing and abundance, pink for love, yellow for happiness, red for power, orange for creativity. Now you can either place all of those colors in your bubble or you can just pick and choose. My favorite color is teal, so maybe I'll add in some teal that's got blues and greens in it. So I'm kind of getting the best of both, right? So just fill your bubble with whatever colors you feel attracted to today. And I recommend that you place yourself in a bubble first thing when you get up in the morning. So you place this bubble around your physical body, you fill it with white light, any other colors you want, and then all you have to do is make this intention or affirmation, whatever you want to call it. Only positive energy flows in my bubble, and only positive energy flows out of my bubble. Any negativity bounces off of my bubble, turns into white light, and goes back out into the world. That's it. It's that simple. Place yourself in a bubble. And I'm one of those people that if you think it's crazy, great. But I want you to experiment, test it out, see how it feels, see how it works. You don't have to trust me. I'm just somebody here on YouTube sharing what I know and what I do. If it resonates, do it. If not, then ignore it. No problem, right? So placing yourself in a bubble is one of the simplest and easiest ways to set an energetic boundary without actually having to say a boundary. I would start there if it's really uncomfortable verbalizing setting a boundary or actually just setting a boundary. Okay. So, again, keep it really simple and experiment with it and let me know in the comments. Try it for a week, try it for 3 days, try it for a day. And if you don't do it in the morning, then let's say you forget and you realize, like, man, I'm just having a shitty day, or just something feels off. You can place yourself in a bubble any time of the day. No one's even going to know because it's all up here. Like you're visualizing or imagining or just setting the intention that you're placing yourself in a bubble. No harm, no foul. So, again, play with it, experiment, let me know how that feels for you. If you try it, what happens, all of that good stuff. So, you can set boundaries. You are totally amazing. I know you can set boundaries. And as you step into taking back your power, just place yourself in a bubble until it gets a little bit more comfortable. All right. So, with that being said, I think that's all I've got for you today. Go be an amazing human, love light, and really big hugs. Mwah.